Guys, I have a brilliant idea. We're going to do something this spring that is going to forever change our lives. It's going to make us healthier, happier, and more productive.
Ooh, stop watching Last Week Tonight with John Oliver right before going to bed.
Marie Kondo our home.
Ooh, finally read The Magic of Tidying Things Up by Marie Kondo, and then Marie Kondo our home.
Ooh, I got it. Stop placing unrealistic expectations on what we should do with our time and simply enjoy life.
No! We're going to start a garden.
Yay!
Oh. Come on! You guys are always talking about wanting to eat healthier, spend time in nature, and get our hands dirty.
Okay, but I think that you missed the key word in that phrase, which was talking, which leads you from a shady nook while convalescing.
And do you even know the first thing about growing a garden?
No. But, like, how hard could it be? I thought we could get started and plan this weekend.
Oh, no, you cannot plant this weekend. That's a ridiculous idea. Come on.
Something.
Well, why not?
Because everyone knows that you don't plant until after Memorial Day weekend.
Because of the snow on Peavine. Everyone knows that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. We need to clear space in the yard, making room for the garden, figure out where all the plants are going to go, gather all the supplies. You know?
Great! I mean, it sounds like you have a plan, and I am empowering you, Jesse, to execute said plan while I maintain, wait for it, and create sacred space.
Yes, sacred space. I will be filling the garden with our intentions. and visualizing what we want to manifest for the harvest. Ooh, and I will be calling on all of the nature spirits to guide us in the garden.
Yes! Awesome! Okay, I'm going to go to Home Depot to get started.
Yes, that's amazing. Yes, sacred space.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Alchemist Theatre, where we know energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It must be transformed. Tonight's theme is the garden, and we invite you into the soil deep down, where transformation really takes place. Deep in the soil, that's where the alchemy begins. So we invite you to open your minds, open your hearts, and enjoy the show.
I like digging holes, hiding things inside them. When I grow old, I won't forget to find them. 'Cause I've got memories and travel like gypsies in the night. I built a home and wait for someone to tear it down.
So I had this dream, one of those dreams that just sticks with you, you know? Have you ever had one of these? Those dreams that you just can't get out of your head no matter what you do? I read in the book of Genesis that God used to walk with Adam in the cool of the day in the garden. This is where my dream starts, except only instead of Adam, it's just me and God. I'm walking through the garden, and God's pointing out all these things in the garden that he created, which, let's be honest, essentially is everything. But he's pointing out specific things that he knew that I'd be particularly fond of, almost as if he made them specifically for me, almost. The way that he had a tree bend as it grew, and the pattern on the fur of one of the animals he made. The creativity and attention to detail that God used was beyond words. He then led me down a long set of steps that seemed to sink down into the heart of the garden, to a set of bronze gilded doors. He asked me to open them. I jump at the opportunity. Locked. What? Why in the world would God ask me to open a set of locked doors? Is this a cruel trick? An impossible test? Have you ever felt like this? Like God was asking you to do something that seemed outside of your capacity? After a few minutes of frantic maneuvering, I hung my head in defeat. I turned around to head back up the steps, only to see a giant key laying at the feet of the stairs. My heart leapt. I sprung into action, plunged the key into the lock, and quickly turned it. The doors let out a gasp, as if this were the first time in eternity that they had opened. A rumbling grew as the doors slowly swung open. The sound gave way to an enormous stampede of color and creativity as dozens of indescribable creatures flew and ran and slithered out the doors, up the stairs and into the garden. I can't even explain what it was like to see colors and textures and shapes that I didn't even know existed. To experience something outside the realm of imagination, especially for an artist. I had to know what the meaning of this dream was. What was the purpose? Here's what I came up with. God has storehouses of unbelievable creations just waiting for us to unleash into this world. As artists, creatives, and alchemists, it's our job to unlock these doors and usher in these new things into our lives and into our culture. Things that have yet to be seen, heard, felt, or even imagined. Too often as creatives, we're paralyzed by the pressure to create something new. It's essentially the holy grail for any artist. But the good news is that God has already done the hard work for us. And he's gifted us the keys and appointed us with the honor to be the ones who open the doors and allow his glory and his beauty to enter in. My prayer for you is that God brings you dreams. May he lead you to the doors and provide you with the keys that he's created just for you, and that he gives you the sheer bravery to believe that you are capable of opening these doors, and that God wants you to be his vessel that brings his love and his blessings to us all. May each of you push past your fears and your doubts. Take hold of your divine purpose. It's your time.
Voices in my mind that say I'm not enough. taking all I have, and now I'm laying it at your feet. You'll have every failure, God, and you'll have every victory.
What's companion planting?
Oh, it's that new dating app for asexual herbalists I saw.
No companion planting for gardens. I'm on this newcomers, first time blog about companion planting, and it's called Green Bee.
Ooh, that's a terrible name.
The green bee, that is... Okay, continue.
Well, there's one of these regular contributors on the site who mentioned companion planting, and it's something that I, and apparently you both, had never heard about before. So then I went down this 8-hour rabbit hole of trying to figure out what it was. You know, what plants should be near what to increase rate of success, and it's a freaking nightmare! Keep the onions away from the beans and the cabbage, they do not get along. Everybody loves spinach and everybody freaking hates tomatoes. Also, make sure that you keep the onions and asparagus away from each other, but do park them near the herb families of parsley and basil, but not garlic because that's overwhelming to the senses. And keep in mind that when you're planting parsley, you need to be next to the onion and bean families, but remember my aforementioned comments about border tension between the onions and the beans.
You know, it sounds like our annual company picnic.
Okay. One time you sprinkle raisins in the potato salad and suddenly no one wants to sit next to you.
You did just sprinkle lemon, and that is a ridiculous thing.
I'm giving up. I have to give up.
No! You can't give up. No, that you were so excited.
I was just about to start keto and
But you guys didn't even want the garden in the first place.
Yes, but we were excited to reap the benefits of all your hard work.
Look, nothing in life was ever achieved by giving up.
Yes. Do not let the fear of striking out keep you from playing the game.
Oh my God, Charles, that is so inspirational.
Thank you, it's from a Cinderella story.
You know what? You're right. We know. It doesn't need to be perfect, and I don't have to get it right. But if I don't at least try, then I will have to spend yet another fear of watching my raised garden beds leering at me with judgment. Fascist! Okay, well here we go. Right, planting the first seed. Right, yeah, you're getting that. Plant the first seed.
All right, how you doing, Alchemists? So this was supposed to be a prop pen.
If you were sitting stage left, you saw that it was loaded, which I was not aware of. So if in about 10 minutes things get a little weird, you know, we'll find out.
It's a last Friday miracle. Last Friday?
Good.
It's already kicked in. So we didn't know when we booked this show that it was Good Friday and the full moon. We didn't know that. So my sermon has nothing to do with that. I may have considered it if I had thought about it. So before I get into my sermon, and seeing as it is Good Friday, ask yourself, what's crucifying you today? What are you being crucified by? Who are you being crucified by? Okay, nope, no, that has nothing to do with anything. I'm just planting that seed. Because it's Good Friday. Okay, so did you know that there's a specific type of depression that some people who have near-death experiences get? Now, some people who have NDEs, as they're called, end up like with this new lease on life. They come out of it inspired and newly positive and with this new sense of faith and purpose. But some people who experience near-death experiences come back with this depression categorized by the fact that what they saw on the other side was so beautiful and so peaceful that when they came back, it was absolutely devastating to them. And they became resentful that they are still alive and that they survived. So it's like waking up from a dream, and the best case scenario is that you wake up into a slightly worse one. Worst case scenario is you wake up in a total nightmare and you just want to go back. Now, completely separately, there's another psychological event experienced by astronauts the first time they see the Earth from space. They all have this collective experience the first time they look down on Earth and they see it as one being, and all of the arbitrary borders are washed away. And all of the astronauts go through this personal transformation where they see us all as one humanity with one purpose. And I'm obsessed with this new documentary on Netflix called One Strange Rock. And it's kind of like Nat Geo, but narrated by astronauts. And this one astronaut, Mike Massimino, he was talking about the first time that he saw heaven, or he saw Earth from space, and he was looking down, and he thought, this must be the view from heaven. And then he thought to himself, no, that's not right. It's more beautiful than that. This is what heaven must look like. And I felt like I was looking into a paradise. Then the narrator after that says, it is like Earth is the Garden of Eden. So, have we fallen from the garden, or are we still here? And this is something that New Age people especially, this isn't a new thought for us, right? That's something that we're like, Earth is already here, you guys. We just need to learn to play nicely. The weird thing is, though, that despite all of our personal faith and beliefs and metaphysics and affirmational prayers, most of us don't experience the Earth currently as the Garden of Eden, because we don't experience the bliss, the trust, the absolute communion that marks the nature of the garden, where there's no striving, there's no fear that exactly what you need is going to be provided for you. In the garden, we rest in tranquility. In the garden, we are comfortable. But most of us on Earth are not comfortable. And this is why I think people who have near-death experiences, Some of them end up with depression because for the first time in many of their lives, they finally felt comfort. And that comfort is so transformative that it's enough to cause them absolute faith or absolute depression when they come back. So I recently traveled south to work with a medicine man, the kind that gives you a special tea to drink. You know. And if you heard my talk in Carson a couple weeks ago called I Want to Be Light, I gave a sermon about one particular lesson that I learned from drinking this tea with this medicine man down south. This is another one of the most important lessons I've taken away from that. And as this tea works its way through your body, the spirit of the earth, the madre, or the grandmother as we call her, she comes in and she brings you healing and comfort and peace, and she offers you clarity sometimes. So I traveled south because I wanted to heal, and I had expectations with a capital E. And we all know what happens when you've got expectations. And so, drank the tea, and I'm waiting for the medicine to kick in, and nothing's happening, and now I'm berating myself because I didn't do it right, it's not working, blah, blah, blah. And I couldn't let the madre in because I was being entirely too controlling. Shocking. And I was trying to control my ability to let go of control, and nothing was working. And so then finally I gave up. And I laid down, and I was like, you know what, forget it. I'm just gonna lay down and let everyone else in the room have their journey. And that's when grandmother, because I wouldn't let her in, instead she just decided to hold me. And in that holding, she seeped in through the cracks. Because even us rigid ones, especially us rigid ones, we've still got cracks. And so grandmother, she came seeping in through the cracks. And I felt like I was in her womb. I was in her garden for, even though I didn't think grandmother was there for me in that moment, that I didn't do it right. Of course she was there. She's never not there. This is her garden, and we are never outside of it. So she seeps in and dawns on me, I am really comfortable right now. I am so comfortable. And if you've been a fan of Alchemist Theatre, you've heard me give lots of sermons about being in physical pain. Even as a 30-something, I have endured physical pain for about a decade. And so for in that moment, I felt comfortable in my body. And even before I had physical pain in my early 20s, I've always hated my body. I've always been uncomfortable in my body because even when it didn't hurt, I didn't like the way that it looked. Our kindergarten is one of my first memories. And so I've never been comfortable in my body, and so for the first time in my life, at 33 years old, I felt comfortable. And I began to breathe really deep, and I thought, you know what? If I came all this way to drink this tea, to feel comfortable for 4 hours, I'll take it. Right, yeah, it was worth it. And I was like, you know what? Maybe that's what I needed. And then it dawned on me, oh my God, that's what she's doing to me. She can't do any of her other work until I get comfortable. We can't do anything until we get comfortable. And so I sat there in this comfort, thinking, okay, this is all I'm gonna get tonight. And then I started thinking about all of the wounds and fears that plague me. All of the things that I traveled all the way south for, to heal, have someone else do it, let the madre do it. And so I started thinking about those things, and I realized I didn't care about any of them. My comfort was bigger than all of them. And then it occurred to me, when you feel comfortable, nothing else matters. And then I started thinking about, okay, what are all my worst fears in life? And I thought about them all, like, what if my dreams never come true? Man, if I'm comfortable, screw them. Sorry, guys. And then I thought, okay, what's my other biggest fear? everyone in the world hates me, and they meet every week in a room to talk about how much they hate Jess and how horrible she is and all of the weird things she does. And then I was like, you know what? I don't care, that feels so good right now. And I realized, again, my comfort was bigger than my fears. And so I asked the spirit, the Madre, because you can have a conversation with her when she's in your space. I said, what am I to do? And she said, get comfortable, girl. And I was like, okay, how do I do that? She was like, open your hips. I came all this way to have the spirit tell me I need to open my hips. And that is what I believe I am here to tell you all tonight. She brought me here to beg that question of you. So here's my question for you. How comfortable are you? Well, not in this moment, not in your body, in general. How comfortable are you? For me, the Madre has me journeying into my body because that's where I need work. That's where I am the least comfortable. My joints are painful and achy and my muscles are rigid. Where are you achy and rigid? For me, it's my body. For you, it might be your professional life, your creative life, your romantic life, your social life. Where are you stiff and uncomfortable? That is where your compass needs to turn to. And then you need to open your hips. I want you to figure out what your opening of the hips is. So, you guys ready for the alchemy?
Yeah.
Yes.
So 20 of you, we're gonna do it. The rest of you, just get out. Okay. So the alchemy is the part of the show where I guide you through a meditation and I channel it live. I have seen nothing for this one. Usually I get some guidance ahead of time. You're gonna close your eyes, you're gonna uncross your body, you're gonna start to really get comfortable. Duh, it just occurred to me why I always have you uncross your bodies. You're gonna breathe deep and Professor Bela, play me something, I don't know, swelly. Perfect, close your eyes. Ooh, I just saw where we're going. First, I want you to become outrageously present. Be in this room. Use all your 6 senses. What do you hear, smell, taste, feel? See. You should see blackness because your eyes are closed. And after you've totally become present in this room, I want you to allow yourself to fall into the earth, deep into the soil, and I want you to feel that soil surrounding you. If you can still see the light, then my friend, you are not deep enough. And once you are in the blackness of this dirty womb, where seeds are broken apart, where seeds are crucified, if you will, I want you to watch the shell of your seed break open like an exoskeleton. And inside is this new holy vine. And I want you to take on the awareness of the shell that just broke off of you. It might have a word written on it. You might already know what it is. It is a piece of your exoskeleton where you have previously been rigid and hard and uncomfortable. And I want you to talk to your shell. Ask it what it is and what it needs to open its hips. Open called to get comfortable in a space that has always plagued you. And after you get your answer from your shell, take the knowledge of the direction that you're heading in and imagine yourself putting it into place. Imagine whatever instructions you were given to open your hips, whatever that was, imagine yourself doing it. And as you imagine it, watch that vine grow out of the soil and into the light. And it travels up and it grows. Continue the visualization to open your hips. And it travels all the way to the top of the sky, where it is swallowed by the sun, yet still connected into the roots of the mother. You are the vine. Your shell is behind you now, and so it is. Amen.
To everlasting love from on high, you'll never come down. For several thousand years we kicked around the same old story. Before the fall we had it all in the glory of God's glory. So peaceful breezes couldn't satisfy our restless minds, could resist the greener grass growing on the other side. We got rooted for transgressing beyond his trust, forever separated, catching up to be his dust. Oh, I'm amazed of how we get to such a heavy narrative, but not be the noise, I hear a voice calling. I invite you to everlasting love from on high. You'll never come down.
Old school wrath of God, warns give in and be damned. New school gospel likes to call you a ragamuffin man. Laughing Buddha says desires frustrated the end. And yet it flows throughout the universe's plan. The New Age dude says we're all one, so what you got to prove?
What you got?
The grounded being sees it all from the eagle eye view.
I'm amazed of how we get to somebody else's narrative, but I need yours, I hear a voice calling. I invite you to everlasting love from on high. You'll never come down. Write a new story, but you're bound between us. Bust up the old narrative and wondering how it is. So who you are and who I be. Don't rely on lineage, our common heritage. Falling in love under the stars, but I play with the words like there's some kind of choice. And I'm wondering, is it just more noise? Do we really need to remind them who we are? Oh no, do we really need to remind them who we are? Do you hear the stillest voice underneath it all calling? Oh yeah. I invite you to everlasting love from on high. You'll never come down. Ooh. I invite you to everlasting love.
throws the beans to the ground and sends Jack to bed without any dinner. Suddenly, in the middle of the night, a gigantic beanstalk begins to grow outside of Jack's window.
What are you doing?
Oh, I read to the plants. All the experts say that reading to your plants is really good for ensuring growth and expansion. I went to the library and I checked out several books about gardening, including The Secret Garden and Peter Rabbit, and later I'm going to play a 24-hour marathon of Fern Gully.
Hey, girl. Question. How long have you been out here?
Only 72 hours. All the experts say that the first week of gestation is the most crucial to plant development. So I'm out here, regulating temperature, ensuring, proper root hydration, and guarding against the ever-increasing threat of my enemies from the Aphidoidea clan. They hide in the shadows, waiting for me to fall asleep. And then they scream like jungle cats and mercilessly destroy everything within their sights.
The Epididymis clan?
I think she means aphids.
Like those cute little garden bugs that eat gardens? Harbingers of destruction! Horsemen of the apocalypse!
Didn't you start gardening to, relax?
Are you relaxed?
Hey, I think we took a right turn at Satan and we just kept going. It's time to reel it back in.
But they need me. How will they grow without me?
It's faith, trust, and nature.
Plants are part of a grander design, more amazing than we could ever imagine. And so, no matter what you do, they have their own path. And so, what you need to do is let go of control and give them space. A little more. Look! They will either grow or they will not grow, okay? It's part of something bigger than you.
And be comforted by the knowledge that if you end up killing all the vegetables in your garden, no one will hold it against you.
I guess I wanted it so bad. I wanted to plant something, watch it grow, and gaze upon my creation and see that it was good.
Okay, who do you think you are, Dad?
Well, hello. How are you all doing? Yeah, it's great. Let's give a round of applause to the Alchemist band. Shout out to Professor D-Lover. That was an original song. Electric. Like my moo. So I woke this morning, and I had a question in my mind. In the Garden of Eden, what if, when God was banishing Adam and Eve said no? Like imagine God filled with all of his Old Testament rage, showing Adam and Eve the door, and they put their foot in the ground and they say, hell no. Like, what would God have done? Because here you have Adam and Eve imbued with this amazing power of free will. Did they see no other solution or no other possibility than to leave? Because they were filled with such shame and fear. Maybe if they didn't have that shame and fear, they would have opened up to the infinite possibilities. This has nothing to do with my talk. This was just the question. Ponder that in the days to come. Now, this may be hard to believe, but I was not a theater kid growing up. No. I know. I was actually very shy. The first time I ever stepped on a stage was in my second grade production of Little Red Riding Hood, and I was a tree. I was a damn good tree. But I had horrible stage fright. I almost failed a class in high school. It was a speech and communications class because I could not talk in front of groups of people. And every time my teacher called me up to give a speech, I would get very nervous and I would start to sweat. And then I would get dry mouth. And then I would start to cry, which is oh so great in high school. The first professional play I ever saw, I was a freshman in high school, I saw The Importance of Being Earnest, which explains a lot. The first professional musical that I ever saw, I was 18 years old and I saw The Lion King, which explains even more. I didn't grow up in a creative or artistic household. At least I didn't think so. Because no one told my mother that her intuitive and inspired work that she did with clients was living art. No one told my father, who was a contractor, that the way that he envisioned schematics for buildings and the way in which he brought those buildings to fruition was creative. And so I grew up believing the lie that I was not artistic and that I was not creative. And I learned this because I believed that art was about talent. That if you were an artist, you had talent, and let me tell you, whenever I opened my mouth to sing, people would cringe. Because apparently, I didn't know this, there's this thing in music called notes. And apparently when you are singing, there are things called correct notes. And I always marched to the beat of my own drum and just invented whichever one I felt like singing. And I didn't, yeah, amen. And I didn't think I was a dancer because I wasn't classically trained, and I didn't think of myself as an actor because I didn't have a resume 3 miles long by the time I was 15. Even when I first started performing as a drag queen, I didn't think that what I did was an artistic expression. Instead, what it felt like was a yearning that came forth from inside of me that wanted to express itself as a woman. And I was a damn good woman. Still am! I am beautiful, expressed myself, I did like I was Madonna. And so for most of my formative years and my professional life, I didn't think I was an artist. I didn't think I was creative at all. Which now, because Spirit has a sense of humor, I laugh at, because I run a theater in town. I'm an executive director of a theater in town. I'm an actor, I'm an improviser, I'm a reverend, I'm a playwright. I write murder mysteries and one-man shows and perform on stages all over the place. My life is one gigantic expression of artistry. Something, though, that I hear quite frequently when I talk to people is that they, too, share the belief that they are not artists. That they do not have a single bone of artistry within their bodies, that they are not creative at all, that they can't do that, that they will never be able to do that. And yet, I feel from them this overwhelming desire and want to be an artist, to express themselves in a unique and beautiful way. And when they share these desires with me, I always ask them, why? Being an artist is rough. It's hard, it's vulnerable, it's grueling, it's exhausting. You want to cry pretty much all the time, and you are crippled with self-doubt because you question every single one of your decisions at all times. And yet, it's also everything else. It's beautiful and magical and wonderful, and it gives your life such purpose and such rich meaning. It's exhilarating. It's amazing, and I absolutely love it. So we have this belief that we hold about ourselves, and we couple that with the spiritual understanding that we ourselves are a unique creation of spirit. That we ourselves are part of a masterpiece. We are a brushstroke of that masterpiece. Vibrant and completely ourselves. And so how do we reconcile these two different worlds? The world that believes that you're not an artist and that you're not creative, and yet you yourself are imbued with creator power. That you yourself are a magnificent work of art. And the same magic that created you lives inside of you. And so, is creativity just reserved for artists? Is being creative an identity, a state of being? Or is it an energy that you tap into? And creativity is something that you actually exhibit and call forth and bring into fruition. I teach theater to elementary school and middle school kids. They are just freaking precious. Except for the kindergartners. They're gross. And the 6th and 7th graders are obnoxious. Really, 3rd grade is just the prime age. Middle of the road. It's great. And when I teach theater to them, I always begin in exactly the same way. I always tell them that story of my upbringing, because there's nothing I enjoy more in this life than talking about myself. But I share it because I want them to know that at the end of our time together, I don't expect them to be actors and actresses. I don't expect them to go out and see every play and every musical that has ever been created. Don't. Many of them suck and are not great. If you're looking for a list, I have one for you. And I don't expect them to love theater as much as I love theater, but the reason why I share the story is because at some point, they are going to have to stand in front of a group of people and talk. At some point in their lives, they're going to have to work in a group with people they may or may not like, and create something, and find creative and inspired solutions that didn't exist before. And at some point in their life, they're going to have to take cues or direction from a teacher, a coach, a director, a boss, someone. And the more that they can learn how to take in that feedback and work with it, it's going to set them up for success no matter what they choose to do in this life. That's why I share that story with them. After I share the story, I say, okay, we are now going to become performers. And as a performer, a professional performer, we need to warm up. And there are 3 things that we need to warm up. We need to warm up our bodies, our voices, and our imagination. Body, voice, and imagination are the 3 seeds that you need to foster in order to cultivate a strong and assured sense of creativity within your life. And that is what my talk is about this evening. Now, there's so much that I can share about this, and I'm just going to give you a brief overview about each of these seeds, how they interact with one another, and how they ultimately lead to a creative self. If you are interested in learning more, the Alchemists have a powerful and transformative class of how you can harness your creative and imaginative and inspired potential and bring that forth into your life. There will be a sign up at the merchandise booth for more information. You can also talk to me afterward. Thank you so much. Shameless plug. So, the first seed is the body. Now, when I work with kids, or really anyone, we're usually talking about the physical body, warming up the physical body. But in this case, when we're talking about inspiration, when we're talking about creativity, we're actually talking about the body of knowledge that you possess within you. We are talking about the specific skills that you have honed, the trainings, knowledge and wisdom, your life experiences. This is the body that we are talking about. Because each of you have walked a path that is uniquely your own, and no one else can really, truly understand what it is to be you. We try damn hard, don't we? We sit there and go, I get you. I know exactly what you're going through. Lies. Because there's no one like you. Your identities, your upbringing, your environment, your social circles, your education, your interests, your likes, your dislikes, your beliefs, every part of you that makes up your uniqueness adds to this wealth of knowledge that is the body. And this is the formative foundation of your creative and inspired self. So when I moved here to Reno, I learned improvisational theater. And when I learned improv, we rehearsed 5 days a week. 5 days a week. In a drafty and cold warehouse on 4th Street. And when I first started, I watched these improvisers sling comebacks and witty retorts. Back and forth, like it was ping pong. And I thought to myself, there's no way I'm ever gonna get this good. There's no way I'm ever gonna get this fast. But I kept showing up, and I kept coming back, and I kept practicing, and I failed, and I made mistakes, and I fell flat on my face, and I allowed myself to be vulnerable, and I allowed myself to be not the greatest one in the room. Until I got better, and better, and better, and better. One of the greatest joys in my life is writing. And for the longest time, I held myself back from writing because I had another limiting belief that in order to be a writer, you had to have good grammar skills. Which I do not. I still don't. Thank God I have surrounded myself with people who have a mastery of the English language. And it was only until recently that I learned that most writers also have a poor grasp of the English language. That's why God invented editors. But I had this desire to write, but I wasn't trained. I didn't go to school for it. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't take any classes. And then someone told me something that has stuck with me my entire life, and that is write what you know. And so, after a deep meditation that I didn't do, an idea popped into my head, and that was murder mysteries. Because I love murder mysteries. Clue is my favorite board game, and I will beat you under the table. I'm obsessed with Murder, She Wrote, and have seen every episode multiple times. I love murder mysteries, and so that was the first thing that I began to write. And recently, when I was Marie Kondoing my home, I came across some of my first murder mysteries that I wrote almost 9 years ago. And like a child's drawing that a parent tacks up on the refrigerator, it was rough. And not great. But it was cute because I sure did try. But I kept writing. And I kept writing some more. And I began to learn things like dialogue and the subtle nuances of character development and scene work and all the intricacies. Still haven't taken a class. I've bought in books that I have not read that sit on my bookshelf. One day, I will read them. That day is not today. It was my experiences that informed my craft, my unique voice. It was my upbringing, my values, my beliefs, my identities that shape my characters, how they move through this imaginary world. That all came from me, not from a book, not from a class, but persistence and diligence and discipline. These are the hallmarks of the body. The body then informs our second seed. That seed is the voice. And the voice, The Voice. It's a great show. The Voice holds every memory, every laugh, every tear, every wound, every experience. You can hear it in its softness, you can hear it in its abrasiveness, you can hear it in the tone. That voice is yours. It's only a question of how you are choosing to use it, each and every day. Do you show up with tonalities of kindness? Or do you shade it in gradations of fear and anger? What are the lexicon of words that encompass your go-to phrases? The things that are uniquely yours, the words that fill you and inspire you and turn you on. This language is hot. Hot, hot, hot. Do you use your voice to move mountains? Or do you use your voice to bury graves? Do you use your voice to uplift, or do you use your voice to downtrod others? How do you use your voice? And we know from a spiritual perspective how important and how powerful the voice is. In Christian mythology, creation began with the word. There was a sound. In the Vedic tradition, Om began the creation of the universe. Everything begins with a sound, and creation flows from there. How many of you don't like the sound of your own voice? I don't. It's really hard for me to watch videos of myself because for a really long time, I hated the sound of my voice. Until someone told me to start humming. And then I loved it. Have you ever been in a situation where you have silenced yourself? Or you have given someone else the power to silence you for you? And you believed that was okay? Have you ever been in a situation where you felt the call to express something, to say something, only to be cut off or interrupted? Believing that what they had to say was more important than what you had to say. And by the time it came back around and maybe someone created space for you to begin to talk, you went, it's fine. It doesn't matter anymore. It's not important. What are the places within your life that you are not speaking your truth, that you are silencing yourself? Maybe out of fear of how others are going to respond or react. Maybe out of fear that what you're going to say is stupid. Or maybe out of fear that what you are going to say doesn't matter. Of course it matters. You're saying it. No one else is going to say it. Do you all have that friend that says the thing that everybody's thinking and you're like, Lord Jesus, thank you! Oh, praise me! I mean, yeah, echo. Yeah, what they said. I agree. That brave soul who is like, none of you mother are gonna say it. Fine. I aspire to be that person. And so body and voice then come together and they shape our imagination. Now the imaginative seed is the most important part of creativity. Without imagination, you will not have creativity. Body and voice help imagination, but you could do without them. But imagination, you cannot. Imagination is the fertile soil, the fertile garden of your mind. It's where all things come out of existence, continuing with our creation stories. In the Vedic tradition, there was nothingness until Brahma thought everything into existence. In Norse mythology, which I'm reading Norse mythology by Neil Gaiman right now, I highly recommend it. Their stories are jacked up. I mean, like, whoever thought of that is cool. But in their creation story, there is a void of gray nothingness, and then these two poles, where if you go to one, there is a mega demon ancient god who stands ready to destroy everything at the end of days. And then on the other side is a cold, poisonous wasteland where if you go, you will die. And then there's nothing in between. And I'm like, that sounds lovely. But the gods, once again, thought on creation. And when I read these creation stories, I'm always struck by where the thought comes from. You have the old gods, the beginning of the beginning, and yet something entered into their field to create, which then makes me think, is there a super god of imagination? Is that something even beyond the concept of God as we know it? Is imagination? Is that where our creative power comes from, our imagination? Because that's what I had as a child. I was full of imagination. Wild stories, imaginary friends, role-playing, oh, I did it all. I didn't need friends. I created them. Until someone told me to stop. Until someone told me that what I was seeing was make-believe. Until someone told me to put away my childish ways and grow up. Until someone told me that I needed to work the other side of my brain, be more practical, more intellectual. And yet, what are we finding now in our academic and professional fields? They are now trying to re-grasp something that has been stolen from them. Trying to introduce arts into the school system, trying to introduce arts into engineering and math and sciences. Trying to introduce arts into the corporate world because they understand and recognize without the arts, without creativity, without imagination, there is no life. And so, we have our imagination, and these three seeds come together to grow your creativity. Now, creativity is a two-part process, and they've actually researched this and have found the two phases are the generation phase and the exploration phase. The generation phase is where imagination comes into play. That's why it's the most important, because it comes first. The generation phase is the unrestricted, unfettered release of ideas. And then the exploration phase comes with the refinement and the editing of those ideas. Your voice and your your body working together as one to sort of discern what may or may not work, what may or may not be an idea that works for you. Because I get ideas all the time. Not all of them are for me. And so I try to not hold on to them, and I let it pass to someone else who is meant to conceive and create that idea. Sometimes I'm not ready for that idea. Sometimes I don't make space in my life for that idea. Sometimes I have total FOMO and ideas just keep coming and I just leap from one idea to another. I'm going on a shopping spree. And then before I know it, I have 12 projects and I am overwhelmed and I have no time for any of them. So, when you ask someone, or when you say, I am not creative, I am not an artist, you're not asking the right question. It's not the right frame of mind, because you are an artist, you are creative, you have creator power within you. The question is, am I using my imagination? What am I doing to foster and stimulate those imaginative seeds within me? When am I going to recapture that childlike innocence that saw the magic in everything, that played like no one was watching, that danced and sang and didn't care if they were on key or on rhythm? They didn't have words yet to describe how off key or on a rhythm they were. So know in your core of being that you live a creative and artistic life, and how you dress and how you move, the words that you choose, the tone that you speak, your beliefs, the choices and decisions that you make, your environment, who you choose to surround yourself with, that is all